this meeting of the Kentucky Housing Corporation. Thank you all for coming today. And Sam, can you confirm a quorum?
Yes, we have a quorum and the press have been notified.
Okay, thank you. And I think everybody's had a chance to look over the minutes. Do I have a motion that they be approved?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Bruce, thank you. We have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. At this time, I want to turn it over to Winston to talk about our good friend Lynn Llewellyn, who passed. And so Winston, take it over.
Well, I just want to say just a very few words about Lynn. Sam's going to read a resolution here in a minute that really details his life's accomplishments and his contribution to the Kentucky Housing Corporation. But he's left a real legacy in terms of what he's done in his lifetime for housing and for affordable housing. And he sort of lived his life committed to it, not just here at Kentucky Housing, but in so many other ways with the NCSHA and other housing organizations that will be named here. But before we read it, as we did with PG, and as you all I'm sure know, on Lynn's passing and the scheduling of his services coincided with PG's, and both Mike and I were able to go to the visitation of both, but it was impossible to go to the service for both, even if you could have gotten in, because of the timing of the two. You couldn't be at one and still make it to the other. But so it was a sad day for Kentucky Housing, and we had both visitations for PG and Lynn on the same day. But I'd like to ask that we do a moment of silence, and then Sam's going to read the resolution, if that's okay. Sam?
Resolution number 26, series of 2026, a resolution honoring the life of Francis Lynn Llewellyn for his service and leadership to Kentucky Housing Corporation and for his commitment to the cause of affordable housing in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Whereas Lynn Llewellyn, a nationally recognized leader in affordable housing, dedicated 50 years to advancing housing initiatives throughout Kentucky and across the nation. And whereas Lynn Llewellyn served 4 separate terms as the chief executive of KHC, 1976 to 1980, 1984 to 1988, 1992 to 1993, and 1996 to 2004. And whereas under his leadership, KHC became a self-supporting agency in 1978, hosted the inaugural Kentucky Affordable Housing Conference in 1985, and assisted KHC's 50,000th homeowner in 2000. And whereas in recognition of his vision, imagination, and devotion to affordable housing, Kentucky Housing Corporation created the Lynn Llewellyn Innovation Award in 2022 and honored Lynn Llewellyn as the first recipient. And whereas Lynn Llewellyn served as Kentucky State Director for the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development under President Bill Clinton. And whereas Lynn Llewellyn helped establish the Louisville Housing Development Corporation and subsequently the Housing Partnership, where he served 2 terms as president. And whereas Lynn Llewellyn was instrumental in founding the Federation of Appalachian Housing, FAHI, where he served at times as president, board member, and advisor. And whereas Lynn Llewellyn led the Renaissance Kentucky program under Governor Patton, an award-winning initiative to revitalize downtowns and improve housing and other opportunities for residents across the Commonwealth. And whereas Lynn Llewellyn served 2 terms as president of the National Council of State Housing Agencies, NCSHA, and guided the development of NCSHA Executive Education Program, which has provided training opportunities to hundreds of leaders in the affordable housing community. And whereas Lynn Llewellyn served on the board of the Federal Home Loan Bank of Cincinnati, the Fannie Mae Housing Impact Advisory Council, and the National Association of Housing Partnerships Board. And whereas Lynn Llewellyn was widely admired for his wisdom, humility, and leadership, inspiring countless individuals to be better leaders, better Kentuckians, and better people. And whereas Lynn Llewellyn devoted his career to making Kentucky a better place to live, his work expanding access to safe, affordable housing and securing a better quality of life for thousands of Kentucky families. And whereas Lynn Llewellyn passed away on Tuesday, May 12, 2026, And whereas the Board of Directors of Kentucky Housing Corporation desires to honor the life of Lynn Llewellyn for his commitment to the advancement of affordable housing. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Directors of Kentucky Housing Corporation does hereby honor the life of Lynn Llewellyn and express its deepest appreciation for his outstanding service, commitment, and leadership to the cause of affordable housing, to Kentucky Housing Corporation, and to the Commonwealth of Kentucky.
Thank you, Sam, very well done. It's unbelievable we buried two titans of affordable housing on the same day. But with that, I'm entertaining a motion that we adopt that resolution.
So moved.
Okay, we have a
Second.
motion, second. Have a second, Kathy. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. They were both wonderful people and important to affordable housing. And while we're issuing condolences, Bill, I want to offer our condolences to you and U.S. Bank for the loss of your two employees in Berea, which happened at the same time we were meeting, the last month meeting. And we've had 5 robberies at our place. We've never had, fortunately, we've never had anybody killed, but when somebody puts a gun in your nose, it's a traumatic experience. So we are certainly sorry that happened.
Thanks, Mark.
So with that, Heather, you're going to report on the action of the meeting of the Program and Policy and Planning Committees.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Program, Policy, and Planning Committee of the Kentucky Housing Board of Directors met virtually at 2 o'clock on Wednesday, May 20th. At this meeting, we reviewed the fiscal year 27 corporate strategies and the fiscal year 27 allocation plan. After the review, the board made a resolution to recommend to this board adoption of that. So I'm going to ask for John Davidson to share the FY27 corporate strategies, and then after that, ask Wendy to share the FY27 allocation plan. After the presentation, it is the recommendation of the committee that this board adopt Resolution 27, which is in the packet, adopting the allocation plan, which is the only one that requires a vote. So John, take it away.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, and everyone else, members of the board. Before I start, I just want to share, Mr. Llewellyn hired me as an intern 21 years ago, and I stand before you today, so I'm very grateful. With that being said, I'm John Davidson, Deputy Executive Director of Business Services, and I'm going to talk briefly about our fiscal 27 strategies and share a little bit and hopefully set the table. If you'll scroll a little bit, Sam, down to the next one. Set the table for what you're going to hear from Wendy and then what you're going to hear from Tracy as well as Kevin in just a few moments. But I'll remind everyone before, this is a this is informational only. This does not require any action. This portion does not require any action. But I want to share that our corporate planning process by board committee, the overarching strategies and allocation plan, as Heather alluded, are presented to the Program Policy and Planning Committee, and then the operating budget to the Finance Committee. You'll hear from both today. You'll scroll down a little bit, Sam. High-level overview of sort of this planning process that we go through every year. We do cost revenue analysis, profit loss, analyze the cost of our annual operations, overhead, revenue at the beginning of the calendar year, and for all of our business planning activities. Next, that informs all of our corporate strategies and what each individual department has, what are called business plans and scorecards that are tied to those strategies and measured. We do that in February and March, and we present those and share those to the Program Policy and Planning Committee for review annually, which I'm doing here. Next, you'll hear from Wendy based on our allocation plan. So once we have our strategy and our business plans and everyone's marching to the same accord here, this is where the allocation plan determines all of our financial resources. You're going to see, I think, $1.8 billion of financial resources. That's a lot. Again, that was presented last week or the week before the 20th. Then in April, we do that. And then last but not least is the operating budget, which you're going to hear from Tracy about. We are presenting a balanced budget, and we do present a balanced budget. to carry out all of our strategic directions. So how we're gonna lay out all of our strategies, accomplish them, but also all of the dollars and sources of use, and then how we're actually gonna pay for staff and revenue and expenses, and all of those are all laid out in a balanced budget. And I would argue, most importantly, we track the progress on these and are held to account and report out to the board in February and August. So with that being said, I just wanted to sort of lay that groundwork, and I'll share the strategies next. You go past that one. This is an overview of the same thing I just shared. I won't spend a lot of time here. What I will tell you is the fiscal 26 overarching strategies are very similar to the 27, and I will denote a couple of differences here as we go forward. So if you go to the 27, thank you. The first is address Kentucky's housing supply gap. We have been beating this drum for a long time, and we are continuing to beat it. We've talked and we're sharing that there is a massive supply gap. This all started with the housing gap analysis that was done with you several years ago. We have focused a lot of our efforts in that for addressing the gap at all levels, any way we can. But ensuring that the gap remains a prominent policy issue through strategic communications and partnerships, highlighting success stories about the Commonwealth and local communities to address the gaps, continuing to build a relationship with non-traditional partners. You're gonna hear from someone a little later, Heather Hargrove. Her job is to literally go out and partner with folks and look and hear and see what they're doing and see how we can jointly work together to address this shortfall, this gap. And then last but not least, one of the things that is super important is we're gonna launch new funding and finance to increase supply. You'll hear a little bit about that in the allocation plan. You will hear some of that in the budget, in the way we're using our HAF dollars and things of that nature. And at the very end of the day, you'll hear about some of those actual programs that we're working on launching and addressing. If you'll scroll down just a little bit. Before I move on to number 2, any questions about number 1? If not,
I just want to say that I looked today at the housing supply gap, and for 2029, we need 77,000 just for people at or below 30% of median, I believe rental units, and then another 20,000 for ownership.
big gap.
So that's units that we need, new units in addition. It's brilliant work by you guys, but I reminded myself of what that gap was.
Thank you. Again, the second thing, the mitigate financial and missional risk. So a couple of things. Quickly respond to program regulatory and funding shifts by clearly communicating the essential value of KHC's programs to legislators, stakeholders, and grantors. Again, a very concerted effort. Winston, Wendy, and Sam went to Washington, D.C. Sam can tell you everything about all the bills and the housing, but we're really working to make sure people know, Kathy, about that gap and what we can do about that. Align and optimize, leverage financial resources to advance our mission, and Tracy will always make sure we're maintaining our long-term financial strength, so we've got to have a balanced budget to pay for all of these things. And then last but not least, maintain prudent stewardship of financial resources and effectively manage risk. Kevin's going to present the audit, effective risk, things of that nature. So, questions about that? Number 3, near and dear to my heart, sustain and advance core competencies, promote a higher level of employee engagement, continue to succession planning and talent retention. You will hear Jordan Weiss as an agenda item for some HR services that we consult with, as well as this team provides. We want to make sure we're not only hiring the right folks, but keeping folks here. Explore ways to use artificial intelligence to improve customer experience and operational excellence. We're going down that path on several initiatives, whether it's Microsoft Copilot, whether it is a new website that we're getting ready to launch, and making sure that we're using the proper AI tools, as well as making sure it is ADA compliant and balancing all of those pieces and parts. And then last but not least, we use several tools and pieces of information to make informed business decisions based on data and analytics. So that will sort of guide what we're doing. So with that, I'm going to ask if there's any other questions before I turn it over to Wendy Smith, the allocation.
Anybody have any questions of John? Okay, thank you, John. Excellent job. Heather?
Now Wendy Smith is going to talk to us about the 2027 allocation plan.
So for those on the board who are on the committee, you know how impossible it is to digest this via a screen. So you will notice that you have 3 placemat size charts at your spots, and I would encourage you to look at these because I just think this is a lot. It's a ton of information to digest and nearly impossible to do it via your screen. It's literally a placemat. You know what, I've got an extra copy. No, we've got extras, thanks so much. There you go.
Bruce, if you don't straighten up, you're not
Yeah.
gonna allow that.
Can't say much.
Start your paper.
I'm just glad that if a device gets ruined, we get to tell IT it was a board member and not us.
There you go.
All right, so again, just to recap what John said, the allocation plan is not our operating budget. Tracy Thurston will be presenting that today. So today is a whole lot of planning documents being brought to you all for us to get ready for the next fiscal year. This document, the allocation plan, is the charting of the sources of funds that come into KHC, the uses to which we will put those funds, and then the impact that we anticipate it having across the state in fiscal year. I will say that this is what I call a swag, scientific wild ass guess, right? We are really guessing on a number of things. Some of it we don't have clarity from the federal government. Some of it, much of it, we're dependent on partners that do implementation of projects and programs with our dollars. And so we're also dependent on them being able to get the work done, digest new funds, all of that kind of stuff. This is our best approximation and kind of goal for what we're going to receive and allocate to partners or to loans, what have you, home buyers across the state, and what we think we will get done. I'm going to give you a little orienting to this. So again, you've got 3 pages. We'll look at the first, last, and probably longest, but I want to let you know what's behind the first. The first page is really a roll-up of the other 2 pages. And so the other 2 pages are, page 2 is all of our sources and where they come from. I'm not going to go through these line by line. We did that in quite a bit of detail in the committee. But I want you all to know that every year we try to chart where do we expect the funds to come from. Some are very steady year to year. They're at least the same sources, if not similar dollar amounts. Others are new or one-time or 2-time, or it can be quite volatile. So it really depends, on the source and what's happening, in DC or at the state level or just in the overall economy. What I would like us to focus on first is page 3, which is all of our uses. So again, all of the sources that we just looked at on page 2 then get charted across these uses. Many of the funds that come to KHC or that are available to us are only allowed to be used for very specific uses. They're non-fungible, and really we just have to use them for what they've been granted for. Some have a little bit of fungibility, a little bit of flexibility. For example, the private activity bond cap that KHC gets from the state, we can use that for mortgages, and we do. We also use it for multifamily development, right? So every year there's a little bit of jockeying, and even as the year goes, we might look at who's utilizing more or less, and where, if we have any excess, we might be able to deploy more bonds to mortgages, or more bonds to multifamily development, or sometimes it's a little bit of both. Another example of a program that gets split across different uses on this chart is the HUD Home Investment Partnership Program. We actually use that in 3 areas. We use that for rental development, so the development of rental units, for single-family home building, and for what's called tenant-based rental assistance under our homeless programs to assist households that don't meet HUD's really strict definition of homelessness, but nevertheless need a little rent assistance to get housed or stay housed. So with the exception of ones like that, much of what we have at the ready is for a specific use, and it cannot be moved to another use. I just want to make that really clear. Particularly our federal funds, those are often incredibly restrictive and can own whatever it came in for, that's what it has to go to. So I'm just going to give you a couple highlights on this uses, and then we'll go to the impact page. Again, the committee has reviewed this in more detail. But as we're looking at it, I'm going to highlight what's new and what we expect to contribute to new supply. So if you look at row E under single family programs, again, I'm on sheet 3. Row E says shared appreciation mortgage, and we have $10 million charted for the next fiscal year. This is new, so there's no funds that were ever allocated in previous years, and Jamie and Heather Haregrove are going to talk about that in a little bit, but this is a program to basically help make mortgages more affordable, and we're tying it to new construction. So they'll talk about that more. So it's a mortgage program, but it's going to be tied only to new units, so that we are incentivizing the creation of more units. If you'll go down under home ownership production, which is the building or renovating of single-family homes, row L is the Price Factory Build Housing Solutions. This is a new program. We competed for some HUD funds. I'm going to talk about this in more detail at the end of the meeting also. This is to replace manufactured units that were built before 1976 and to help some mobile home communities become resident owned. So I'll give you all more detail later. If we go down under multifamily programs, row Q, this is something that we hope will help increase more housing supply. This is we're calling it capital placement for rental development, and you will see there's $6 million in KHC's discretionary funds. We never have allocated these funds to this resource before. We are exploring at this point working with community development financial institutions, CDFIs, around the state to basically place capital at a very low cost to them to develop what we call middle rental housing. So duplexes, triplexes, quads, and maybe it would even be allowed to go up to 120% of area median income, maybe even slightly higher. The idea being we need more small-scale rental development. It's a lot easier to get it through zoning, it's a lot easier to get it built, and we need small developers doing it, but there's not a lot of low-cost capital out there for it. So it's something we're going to pilot. What I'm sharing with you all is that we're going to try some new stuff. Right? We didn't see a lot of action at the state level, and we haven't seen very aggressive action at the federal level on housing acceleration. So we're trying to figure out what can we pilot to figure out, does it work, would it get traction, and should we try to do it more? So this is one, this capital placement with finance partners around the state. Okay, and then going down under rental assistance programs, row CC, which is the 811 tenant assistance, rental assistance program. You will see we have a very tiny amount in there, but let me assuage worries that you have. This is competitive rental assistance that is kind of like a Section 8 voucher, but it is tied to the unit. We competed for it at the federal level. We got an award. We will actually compete for more. It's brand new, so we're building the program out. We hope to begin leasing up next fiscal year. I just really honestly don't know how much leasing up we will get done. We really aim to move faster than this and expend more than $220,000, but it's a big question mark because again, that's a new one that we really are just beginning to get going. It is rent assistance for people who are disabled but not elderly. It's really needed in this state, rent help for folks with disabilities, and we're excited to be able to offer it. And those are all of the kind of new programs and new programs that might help with supply. I will pause there to see if you all have questions, and then we'll go to the impact sheet.
Wendy, I do have one.
Yes, sir.
Price Factory Build Housing Solutions. There's no money allocated in there.
Yes, so yeah.
Okay.
We sure as heck hope to get some money spent. And I will talk about this at the end of the meeting.
Okay.
It's brand new. We're gonna ask our partners to do a brand new thing. We hope dollars get spent next fiscal year, but it is very possible that we will commit dollars to partners and train them, but not get dollars spent until the next fiscal year. I really just honestly don't know.
Okay.
And I didn't even know how to guess. Because it's so, we've never done anything like it. Any other questions about this sheet before we move to impact? Okay, so if we'll go back to page 1, which is where we make, yes ma'am.
Thank you, because when I look at 77,000 units just for people at 30% of median, and I see we get low-income housing tax credits to help, what, 3,000?
Yeah.
Units? I'm just
No.
grateful for anything that you can pull out.
Yes, and I will say we have sometimes to my staff's heartburn, my aim is if we can get more rental assistance, if we can get more dollars to Kentucky, we've got to go for it because it's not like our regular federal allocations are growing sufficiently or tax credits are growing sufficiently. Okay, so if we go back to page 1, this is where we roll up all of the other 2 pages and try to simplify it into kind of like, well, what does this mean for Kentucky? What's the impact going to be in terms of dollars or units, for the state? So we'll go through this in just a little more detail. And please interrupt if you have questions. You're not going to throw me off. Okay, so let's start with single-family lending. So this is our mortgage lending for moderate income, middle income, and first-time home buyers, led by Jamie Rice, who's here today with us. So what you will see is row B is our single-family mortgage production, and we are projecting a little over 2,600 new homebuyer households that will get a mortgage through KHC next fiscal year. It's great impact. It's one of our biggest impacts, and in terms of bread and butter to keep us operating, it's a really essential program for us. And you will see we are aiming to do about $525 million in bond and secondary market activity to fund those mortgages. In row C, it says buyers receiving down payment assistance. What you will see is that's a little over 2,400, almost 2,500. So basically, most of our buyers, our borrowers, also get down payment assistance to make their purchase. It's a really essential kind of ace in the hole for us in terms of helping people make their mortgage affordable and decrease a barrier to entry. Right now, our maximum down payment assistance is $12,500, and it is a loan that is repaid by the borrower, but it helps bring down their loan to value on their first mortgage.
And that reflects that housing costs have gone up so much.
Yes,
that you've had
right.
to,
Oh yeah, it used to be like $5,000 or $6,000, and within a few years, we've escalated it to $12,500. Okay, and then going down to, we will see row D, which is the Homeowner Assistance Fund, or HOAF. That's gone because that's a COVID area foreclosure prevention program it has sunsetted, so you won't see any funds in this coming fiscal year. Row E is that shared appreciation mortgage. That's new, and hear more about that later. Row F is households receiving homeowner counseling. This is a small dollar amount, but we do allocate our own discretionary funds to basically fund group homebuyer education so that folks can learn some basics about how do you understand what you're paying, what escrows are, and what it means to become a homeowner. So those are our single family lending programs, really important to creating affordable homeownership in Kentucky. The next section is our homeownership production. So this is when we build houses, like through a Habitat or many of our partners in East Kentucky, or we do homeowner repairs, or we do that price program that I mentioned. It's all having to do with home ownership, usually of single family homes. And you will see this is pretty modest. It's 210 units at about $8 million. We simply have a small amount of dollars for this. In part, it's not a lot because our HUD home dollars got cut a few years ago, and the State Affordable Housing Trust Fund fee revenue is not especially high. We are expecting an increase in that, but it's not, the fee revenue is just not where it used to be. Okay, multifamily production, beginning in row I and the detail in row J. So we expect to produce, to construct 2,180 units of multifamily affordable housing. $348 million that comes from multiple sources, primarily This is bond financing and equity that is generated from low-income housing tax credits. Those are the two big sources for that. We do put some home dollars, Affordable Housing Trust Fund, and other sources in there, but it's primarily bonds and tax credit equity. The next, which is our rental assistance programs. Again, these are programs that help folks afford the apartment that they're in. What you will see in row L is that we, in any given month, help over 26,000 households afford their rent across the state. We operate a Section 8 voucher program in 87 counties, and we serve what are called project-based rent assistance properties in 109 counties. So we have a big footprint with these programs. We also have some COVID-era emergency housing vouchers, just 132. Though that is winding down, that number will shrink, and we will actually move those folks off of those at the end of this calendar year, so within next fiscal year. And then lastly, we have some, we have nothing charted, but wanted to show the comparison for our COVID emergency rental assistance. Again, that has sunsetted, so there's nothing allocated for this year, but we wanted to be able to offer the comparison to previous years. Okay, next, under homeless and special needs programs. Just to remind you all, we administer a range of homeless funds and programs and duties for 118 counties. So everywhere but Louisville and Lexington. So we work with shelter and service providers all across the state. We anticipate assisting 3,700 households with our homeless programs. And then we also get funding for people with AIDS, and that can be rent assistance, utility deposits, move-in assistance, and case management, and we expect to assist 260 households across the state in that category. And then finally, we have a range of energy efficiency and weatherization programs funded by the Department of Energy at the federal level, and we get funds through the Cabinet for Health and Family Services through LIHEAP. Most folks think of LIHEAP and they think of rent assistance to pay your monthly bill. We don't do that. We use a portion of the state's LIHEAP to weatherize and make energy improvements to households, primarily owner-occupied homes, but we've begun doing more multifamily units too because our funding has increased. So we're trying to do more energy efficiency with affordable rental properties. And so what you will see is our projections for those. And the bipartisan infrastructure legislation in row T, we're not getting new money, but we're still using those funds. We work primarily through a network of community action agencies for this, and I will say it's a gnarly program. I always joke with Kelly Reynolds, who's here, that I give that program the stink eye because I think it's overly difficult to implement, but it's a really pretty cost-effective way to buy a lot of affordability for folks by getting those energy bills down. So all told, in terms of what we expect to allocate across the state, we have $1.1 billion on here. You might recall John mentioned $1.8 billion. If you look back at the last page, which is sources, that does total $1.8 billion. And what's the difference between them is we have a section on the sources page at the bottom that says all other uses, and that is largely funds that we hold in reserve, funds that we're holding to offer as loans to our partners as they are waiting on federal grants. There's often a lag, and we loan money to our partners, and we do some proactive grants to a number of partners. So that's kind of a bucket of funds that don't necessarily create units, and or they might be just held in reserve for us to determine what to do at a later date. Okay, so that's a lot. Any questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
On line H, where you have your homes constructed, you're prepared, your estimate, your estimated investment per unit household is a lot less than what the actual investment was on your 25 data. How do you come to, I guess, how do you come to an estimate, when you know things are more expensive?
It's a little bit of a guess, and part of it is we are allowing partners to use some of our funds. They ask for it to use for repair and or construction, and we are allowing them to make that determination as households come to them. Like, can we, particularly for Rural Housing Trust Fund and AHTF in disaster areas, we allocate a bucket to, let's say, the Housing Development Alliance, and we say you can use this for home repair or for home construction. So part of the reason we're way off is we don't know which they're going to use it for, but we want to allow them that flexibility to be responsive to what, sometimes they go and think they can repair a house and it's like, it's going to have to be rebuilt, or it's in a floodplain and we won't let them. So that's part of the inaccuracy.
So Wendy, likewise, the mortgage production is somewhat down from 25 figures, and the homeless is down. Is that the normal ebb and flow, or are there reasons there?
The biggest reason is the cost of homeownership and the cost of renting keeps going up,
Okay.
but our available funds hasn't grown wildly, right? So we're spending more per unit to do a mortgage, or more per unit to help someone with their rent. And so it means we're serving fewer households.
Okay.
I don't like it either.
Any other members have any questions of Wendy?
Our single-family mortgage financing, we're not limited. I mean, we would have more capacity, so is it a supply or demand, more of a demand factor than it is a,
There's a couple factors. One, if we're gonna finance using mortgage revenue bonds, we get only so much volume cap allocated to us every year, which we also use for multifamily. So, we get our share of the cap. We sometimes can pick up unused cap from state pool, energy pool, but we only have so much bond cap. On the secondary market side,
from the state?
from the state, yes. On the secondary market side, we don't want to lose money. And so we need to be priced, our interest rate needs to be priced where we can still make money in the coupon that we sell those pools in. So right now, we're not making a huge servicing spread. Our rate is 6 1/4, 6 3/8. Just taking 6% pool, or 6% coupon. If we went any further down and had a drop to a 5.5% coupon, when we go to sell those, we would lose money. We have to recover like our comp expense as well.
In addition, it's worth pointing out, we are funding with our discretionary dollars out of the Housing Assistance Fund, the down payment loans, like we fund those with our own dollars. Those are not sold in the secondary market, they're not bond funded. So we also can be limited by how much do we have to put, to be tied up in these down payment loans that we're making to our borrowers.
And I'll give you a quick example. So my colleague in Florida, they've got a very, very hefty down payment assistance pool of money that is allocated to them from the state appropriations. And so their down payment assistance, I think, is $35,000 a household. So she can set an interest rate of 6.5%, 7% and still get all that business because people want their down payment assistance, and then make a lot of money on the secondary market. We've just got pretty slim margin, unfortunately.
thank you, that helps.
Well, another question I want to piggyback off what you just are alluding to, Bill, is what is our actual production capacity? Because it doesn't matter how much money we've got, we're still getting some law diminishing returns. So is this number, what percentage, or do you know this, Wendy, might be actually something unfair at this point, is what is our capacity?
You mean, how many could we do if,
Yeah, I mean, we just
if
give
other
them-
issues were not, I don't know if that's ever been tested.
We are limitless, let me tell you. It is pricing, it is limited comp, it is down payment assistance. So with unlimited funding, we could do unlimited production. So
Probably the way to say that is staff has never been our limiting factor.
correct.
Yeah.
James, our cap, the most we have done in a year is 4,600 loans. And so, yes, the number that it's going down makes me crazy too.
So you're 50%.
Yeah. But you also look at the average, when we did 4,600 loans, the average purchase price was probably around 130,000. We're over 200,000 average purchase price, and borrower incomes are not increasing at the same rate.
Yep.
So with that, as Heather noted, we respectfully request approval of the allocation plan for fiscal year 27.
Okay, Heather, do you want to make that motion?
I will make the motion to adopt the FY 27 allocation.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
So Wendy, thank you so much for your hard work. And we have faith that you all can do the production, okay? All right, Heather, thank you, and your committee. Barry, you're up next with the Finance Committee.
Now that we know we can do 4,600 units, the Finance Committee has got to do some work. The Finance Committee of the Kentucky Housing Corporation Board of Directors met virtually at 2 p.m. on Tuesday, May 26th.
Kevin Fields, a Director of Internal Audit, led off the meeting with a presentation of the fiscal year 2027 annual internal audit plan. This time I'll ask Kevin to give his work.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. I am here to present to you the plan that we have developed for internal audit projects for fiscal year 2027. So agenda item number 5 concerns a recommendation for approval of this plan. And as you all know, auditing standards require that we develop a risk-based audit plan each year to determine the priorities of the audit function in a manner that is consistent with the corporation's goals and objectives. So the first part of the plan here is really an overview of the objectives and the mission of the internal audit department, the responsibilities of the internal audit function, and then I've broken this down into our internal audit approach for our programmatic and operational audits, and then for our quality assurance reviews over the legal assistance program. So the plan itself, and this is the meat of it, is organized and basically provides a summary of the internal audit services to be performed in each of these categories. You'll notice we have 4 categories: the internal audit support and single audit support, which we spend roughly close to 50 to 60, 2/3 of our time almost working on part of the single audit and the financial statement audit throughout the year. So in between that, we'll work in our other programmatic and operational reviews. We also run the quality assurance reviews for both the project-based and case-based programs. And then further down, and yeah, these are the operational and programmatic reviews that we plan to conduct during the year. So you can see it's a mix of various areas of the corporation and operational, either operational or programmatic. So since much of the plan, as you can tell, is regulatory, I'll say, or compliance-based, you know, we spend a bulk of our time on that. But we're always, it's a flexible plan, so we can adjust it accordingly to the best of our ability based upon our staffing and time. As I said, the external audit takes a good amount of time. But we're always here to address any concerns of the board, of the finance committee, or senior management. So with that in mind, I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Any members have any questions of Kevin? Kevin, I read through this. It's an excellent job.
Thank you.
And so when I see red, it's because we haven't quite gotten that committee together.
No,
Did you rate ourselves?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, so we do
Looked pretty harmless.
So that's kind of a summary of the overall risk associated with each of those plans. So you'll see green where the risk is low. Yeah, yellow where it's medium, and high level risk is red.
Just the one, and you got a plan for that one?
Yes, well, that's information security, and as I mentioned to the finance committee in our meeting earlier this week, as you all know, data security, information security is always high risk in today's environment. With everything going on, brings an elevated level of risk, so that's why that's rated high. We try to keep close watch on all that.
Okay.
So Barry, do you want to make the motion on
I
the
do, for a
resolution
fact.
28?
On behalf of the Finance Committee, I'd like to make a motion to approve Resolution 28.
Okay, so we have a motion. Do I have a second? Second. Bruce, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign, motion carries. Barry, go right on.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Kevin. We appreciate your hard work.
Chief Financial Officer Tracy Thurston then presented in some detail the March 31st, 2026 financial statements, an abbreviated version of which follows. Tracy, financially, the corporation had a good third quarter which should be the result of good performance for the year. The primary bottom line drivers behind the performance were higher fees in multifamily production and single-family servicing revenues being well ahead of plan. Lower reimbursable expenditures were offset by a reduced admin fee revenue. This time, Tracy, please present the third quarter results.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon, members of the board. I'm going to do a pretty high-level overview of our third quarter financials since we went through it in some detail with Finance Committee. So hopefully this will be fairly brief. So the first page here is our balance sheet. Looking at line D, total assets. There's been an overall increase in assets since June 30 of $143 million, which is a result of issuing bonds to finance mortgage activity, offset by a slight decrease in cash. Looking down at lines E and F, revenue bonds and interest payable. Outstanding revenue bonds increased by $126 million with a few debt issuances. And line F, interest payable, this decreased by $6 million, which reflects additional interest payable added, offset by our bond call on January 1. Going down to line K, this reflects our mark-to-market of our securities. The market value of our securities improved from June 30 to March 31 by about $12 million, a trend we've been seeing all fiscal year long. And then down at line L, overall net position at 9 months increased by $31 million to $535 million, mostly as a result of the nice profit the first couple quarters and the booking of the mark-to-market. Any questions on the schedule? All right, we'll move on to the income statement. First line to review is line C, net interest income. Slight increase in net interest income since March last year, 1.7 million. Going down to line D, gains on sales of loans. Gains on sales of loans is up compared to last year at this time by about $2 million. We saw a few months of decent payups selling our custom pools. Unfortunately, it does not look like it's going to be as good the last quarter of this fiscal year. Going down to line E, fees, charges, and grants and other income is up by $2.5 million. You'll see this on our operating budget slide, but that's mostly multifamily programs being ahead of budget on their fee income earned. Going down to expenses, line G, G&A expenses are up about $3 million this year. This is predominantly in our mortgage service area. Mortgage servicing area. You'll also see that under the operating budget. We did add staff to address a growing portfolio, and we saw increased mortgage default costs. Line P, our change in net position, which is net income for the quarter, is $31 million, a $4 million increase over last year at this time. Any questions? Yes?
Tracy, interfund transfers on line O.
Yes.
Tell me what those are.
So we do fund accounting here. And so what this page doesn't represent is our governmental side of the business. And so there are transfers in between different funds, including the governmental. So that's why it doesn't quite balance on here. This is just proprietary.
So that would be a net income from those funds?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Next statement is cash flows. Really not much to mention here. We've got similar activity this year compared to last year. For instance, at March 31st last year, in our loan purchases and fundings was at $426 million, and we were at $420 million this year. So pretty consistent activity year over year. The next two slides are our operating budget. The first one is operating fee income, budget versus actual. I'll go over a couple lines here. Line B, program fee income from home is favorable to budget by $194,000. This reflects some additional grant expenditures, including some residual contract charges from the prior fiscal year. And we also had our housing connectors within our homelessness initiatives charge their time to this cost center that wasn't quite budgeted for. Going down to line C and D, our homelessness programs and weatherization programs. These were unfavorable to budget in both areas by $409,000 and $508,000 respectively. These are grant-funded programs, so if we didn't incur the expense, we also don't draw down the fee income. Line F, temporary COVID programs, unfavorable budget by $908,000. This is our host program predominantly. We budgeted to have it used all year long, and it was all exhausted earlier in the fiscal year. Line G, mortgage servicing fee income is a 1.1 million favorable to budget. We generally budget this pretty conservatively, so this isn't surprising to us that it's slightly ahead of budget. And then multifamily programs is showing $3 million favorable to budget. We had a decent amount of bond projects closed, funded under our Western Kentucky NOFA, and we were able to fund a couple extra tax credit properties that brought in additional fee income. So line P, overall, we're $3.5 million favorable to budget, and on the fee side of things, for the first 9 months with a surplus of $7.5 million. Last slide for the third quarter is our expenditures year-to-date, or budget versus actual. The only thing I'll mention here again is the mortgage service default costs, unfavorable to budget by $836,000. I've mentioned before, loss mitigation strategies have changed now that we're post-COVID, so we're experiencing more costs there. We had a pretty good conversation in Finance Committee, so I'm going to bring more servicing portfolio data in front of Finance Committee in future meetings, just get everybody's understanding of how that whole operation works. Line CC, overall, we're favorable to budget by $900,000 in the expenditure category. You're going to see in the budget, fiscal 27 looks a lot like fiscal 26. And that concludes my report on the financial update.
Any other questions for Tracy? The final item on the Financial Committee agenda was at the 26th meeting was to review and recommend for approval the Kentucky Housing Corporation fiscal 2027 budget schedules. So Tracy, I'll let you present that as well.
Okay, thank you. Similar to the last presentation, I'm not going to go nearly as far into detail as I did with the Finance Committee, but I'm here to present to you our fiscal 27 operating budget for approval. Not sure if you had an opportunity to look at the memo, but it kind of lays out what fiscal 26 looked like going into fiscal 27 and how we put the budget together. We really need to vote on pages 6 and 7 within this packet. For this presentation, I'm going to be looking at pages 6 and 10 to provide some explanations. So a little background on how we prepare the budget. Staff take fiscal 26 year-to-date expenditures, and they project what they think the actuals will be for every cost center at the corporation. That's over 90 cost centers. We use fiscal 26 projected actuals to determine what our fiscal 27 budget number should be. So that's kind of a little background on putting this together. So starting with this page 6, the top section in gray is related strictly to our old indenture, and we're required to create a budget for it and send it to the trustee. So that's what this section is for. The bottom half here is it's pretty much the meat of the operating fees and expenditures. So I'll point out some of the bigger numbers that you should pay attention to, and then discuss why there's variances. So if you look at line X, we're estimating an approximate surplus of $2.9 million in the fiscal 27 budget. This is a $3.2 million decrease from our projected actuals for 26. Line S, if you go up a couple, these are our budgeted fees and administrative reimbursements for 2027. They're estimated to decrease by about $2 million over our projected actuals. A couple of reasons why. We use some conservative estimates for mortgage servicing fees in line H and multifamily programs in line J. Tenant assistance fees have gone down slightly in line I, which is mostly on the Section 8 housing voucher side. There are more planned grant activities and weatherization in line K and homelessness programs in line L, which results in higher administrative reimbursements. Lines N and P are zeroed out as those are programs that have been exhausted. Line O, an increase in other grant and fee income by $416,000, includes a new grant that Wendy is going to discuss later in the program, the price program. And then again, total fees of $40 million, less operating expenditures of $37 million, results in a projected surplus of just under $3 million. Any questions on this page?
Tracy, I do have one question.
Yeah.
What does the absence of a scheduled laptop refresh cycle mean?
So, I'm thinking how to do for my team here. Kedrick, do you want to explain?
Yes, so we have a 3-year cycle where we update the corporation's laptops for each individual, the corporation. Last year, we rolled out Windows 11, which actually forced us to move 1 year forward. We did 2 years at once, basically. So we're taking 27 off, and 28 will start refreshing the laptops again.
Okay.
That's what they tell me.
I think I understand.
To explain our expenditures, I'm gonna have Sam go to page 10 so you can see the projected actuals for 26 compared to the budget for 27. And I'll just point out some of the higher variance.
Apologies.
All right, perfect. So you look at the bottom of the page here, we are projecting a $1.16 million increase over our projected actuals in fiscal 26. And I'll highlight a couple of the reasons why. Starting with line D, salary and benefits, which is a good chunk of our expenditures here. The 2027 budget totals $25.5 million, a $268,000 increase over our 26 actuals. This includes a proposed cost of living compensation adjustment for staff, including the executive director, effective January 1, 2027. In addition, it incorporates higher employer-paid health insurance premiums and an anticipated increase in the corporation's 401A retirement match from 4% to 6%, also effective January 1st. These are partially offset by some of the salary reductions and the COVID programs that have ended, and a little bit truer calculation of our projected vacancy rate. Going on to line G, business services, an increase of $233,000. This is predominantly a planned software migration in our accounting department. Line I, travel, an increase of $181,000. There's projected higher travel costs with inspections, as well as travel within weatherization and housing connectors. Line J, employee development, an increase of $128,000. This is attributed to some new inspection protocols within the rental department, some planned training for IT, and conferences and trainings within our continuing care and weatherization programs. Line K, bond-related fees and expenses. This is an increase of $114,000 just from new debt issuances. Line W, equipment, repair, and furniture, a decrease of $144,000. We had a handful of capital improvements around the campus that are not planned for next fiscal year. So overall, an increase in expenditures of $1.16 million. Any questions?
I have a question, you may have said it, I missed it. On the salaries, what is the cost of living increase, merit increase, whatever you like to call it, for the employees of the Kentucky Housing this year?
Within the budget, or what we've done this current fiscal year?
Start July 1.
So we did a 3% increase for staff January 1 of 2026, and this budget proposes another 3% increase January 1st, 2027.
Okay. I don't think they can work for nothing, you know, and back to the recruitment and retention. And when you get a good one,
100%.
gee whiz, you gotta keep them.
And that's also why we're proposing the increase in 401A match as well as recruitment and retention. 4% just doesn't seem meaningful. So we'll of course come back for board approval on that in a future date. Barry, that concludes that.
Okay, thank you, Tracy. If there's no additional questions for Tracy, on behalf of the Finance Committee, I make a motion to approve Resolution 29, adoption of the annual budget for housing revenue bond resolution for July 1, 2026 through June 30th, 2027.
Okay, so we have a motion, we'll have a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign, motion carries. Barry, you want to talk about Resolution 30?
I do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, on behalf of the Finance Committee, I would make a motion to approve Resolution 30, approval of the budgeted operational expenditures for the Housing Revenue Bond Resolution for July 1, 2026 through June 30th, 2027.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign, motion carries. Barry, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're committed.
That
Okay.
concludes our report.
Thank you. So Tracy, you're still up, so you're on a roll. So, you want to talk about the PNC line of credit?
Yeah, I've got 2 lines of credit. I'm requesting authorization for renewal from this afternoon. The first one is authorization for renewal line of credit with PNC Bank. We currently maintain a $65 million unsecured line of credit maturing on June 30, 2026. We use the line of credit to warehouse mortgage purchases that will be sold to the secondary market. It can also be used to warehouse mortgage purchases in anticipation of obtaining bond proceeds. The program funding model eliminates the negative carry normally associated with unexpended bond proceeds. We also use the line of credit for the buyout of seriously defaulted FHA, VA, rural housing loans. And then we also use it for loans which foreclosure has been completed, but claim proceeds have not been received yet, if there's an opportunity for positive arbitrage. The line will bear interest at simply SOFR plus 40 basis points, and contain a non-usage fee of 12.5 basis points. That coupled with the other line of credit will give us $90 million in capacity. And we request authorization to renew this line of credit for $65 million with PNC Bank.
Okay, so I'd like to have a motion for that, if we could.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, I have a motion by Holly, and a second from the mayor. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign, motion carries. On this next line of credit, Madam Secretary, will you take over? I have a business relationship with Fifth Third, and we'll step out.
Similar to last line of credit, we have a line of credit with Fifth Third Bank for $25 million, maturing on June 30, 2026. This line of credit bears interest at 1 month SOFR plus 80 basis points and has a non-usage fee of 20 basis points. We request renewal of this line of credit for $25 million with Fifth Third Bank.
So we are seeking now a motion for renewal of the line of credit for Fifth Third Bank.
So moved.
Thank you, Bill. We have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Barry. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Tracy.
Very much appreciated.
Thank you.
Here for a second, I thought y'all were gonna leave me out there permanently. All right. So next, Jordan Weiss, we have a authorization to enter into a personal service contract with Hannah Resource for employee services. You want to tell us about that, Jordan?
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon. Kentucky Housing Corporation requests approval to enter into a personal service contract with Hannah Resource Group LLC for an amount not to exceed $21,600. They can provide consulting services for continued compensation evaluation, planning, and succession planning for fiscal year 2027. Following request for proposals process in 2026, KHC selected Hannah Resource Group to provide human resources consulting services. KHC would have the option to renew the contract for 2 consecutive years following the RFP solicitation and evaluation process.
Anybody have any questions, Jordan, in regard to this? If not, I'll entertain a motion that we adopt this resolution 33. All right, we have a motion and a second from Kathy. A motion and a second, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign, motion carries. Thank you, Jordan. Okay, Kelly Reynolds, we have the authorization to renew a personal service contract with Community and Economic Development Association of Cook County, Inc. So you want to tell us about that, please?
Yes, of course. So this resolution is to renew a contract. We're just doing really contract extension. We've done this for this contract we've done for 2 years. They are a consultant to us for our IIJA bill, bipartisan infrastructure legislation funds through the Department of Energy to consult with our subgrantees on how to do multifamily weatherization. So it's really just to really expand this movement that we're making to do weatherization on multifamily projects. So they act as a consultant to us and other subgrantees who want to proceed with some of those projects. So we are just renewing their contract and extending it. So that's what this is. Any questions? Yeah.
Where are they located?
They are located in Chicago. We do not have that expertise in the state, so they are really kind of national experts at this. They are a community action agency in Chicago, but they do really good work, and it's really who the Department of Energy referred us to work with.
So that's where the Cook County comes in.
That's where the Cook County comes in, yeah.
Sam, we don't have to put it out for bid or anything.
I believe that there was a determination that it was impractical and infeasible to bid for this contract. Is that correct, Kelly?
Yes, they are the only ones I know of that provide this service. Yeah.
And
Probably
they-
also professional service, right?
I'm sorry?
Is it a professional service?
It's a personal service contract.
I mean, but you don't have to bid it out if it's professional services, right? Y'all may operate differently, I don't know. Okay,
Yeah, we
so
do, yes.
Scratch that.
Yeah. And you said that the Department of Energy recommended them to us, is
Yes.
that correct?
Yes.
So,
I'm all in favor of helping multifamily who have not been helped during their costs of utilities.
Okay, do we have a motion that we approve this? All right, Bruce, we have a motion, Kathy, second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign, motion carries. Thank you very much, Kelly.
Thank you.
So, this next, authorization is to create a pilot program. And I want to thank Winston and Sam. They have worked diligently, for longer than a year to make this a reality. And I think we are here now, and I really appreciate their efforts, because it's been an up and down situation, as you all know. So, Sam, I'm gonna turn it over to you and Winston to talk about this.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, KRS 198A states that real property owned by KHC is exempt from property tax and special assessments, and it gives us the authority to pay in lieu of taxes amounts of corporation fines consistent with the cost to the state or political subdivision of supplying municipal services to the housing development. Real property that's owned by KHC pursuant to that is not subject to taxes, and we're authorized to agree to a pilot agreement with the local taxing jurisdiction. And so this is similar to the process that industrial revenue bond projects go through, but it does not require a bond issuance. And so we've been working to develop this program, as you know, over the last year or so, for a situation where residential housing developments that wish to obtain a reduction in property taxes are structured such that KHC owns the property and leases that property back to the developer. As part of the process, the developer would be required to approach the local taxing jurisdiction and negotiate the terms of the pilot agreement. KHC would offer this program to developments that have an award of 9% or 4% low-income housing tax credits from KHC. As I discussed at the last board meeting, the 2026 legislative session, the General Assembly passed House Bill 757, which included a provision confirming that real property leased by KHC under the proposed framework would be, that the leasehold interest would be tax exempt so long as the development results in adding 48 units of housing. There's an extended use agreement in favor of the corporation, which is the case in low-income housing tax credit projects. And then the county judge executive and the mayor of the applicable subdivisions have approved the lease. We've engaged outside counsel to evaluate this program, and Luke is here with us today in case you have any questions of him, to assist with the creation of the program documentation, including a template lease agreement that has robust protections for KHC, such as indemnification provisions, insurance requirements, consent requirements for sublease, transfer of lease, and lease termination and transfer of ownership back to the developer in the event of a default. Given the significant housing supply gap across Kentucky, rising development costs, and the statutory authority and the General Assembly's approval of this mechanism, KHC staff are looking to explore the rapid development and implementation of this new program to provide this additional resource to housing developments across Kentucky. And I can tell you that developers are eager to make use of this. So we get lots of questions about that, when we're going to be able to do this. And so we're happy to present this to you all for approval.
Winston, do you have anything you want to add?
Not really anything to add. I think we've discussed this program before on several occasions, and I think we've addressed hopefully any concerns that people have had before. And,
I can go through the resolution itself, includes some, yes.
I just want to make sure I understood. There's two conditions to even start considering. 48 unit minimum, and you're either getting tax credit or the bonds for lower income.
That's correct.
I'm on board.
And approval from the local political subdivision as
no,
well, the
then it
mayor and the judge
starts.
executive, yes.
So I have a question, probably more about logistics, how it works. For communities that these are located in that it affects, logistically, how does the money ultimately get to the city or the county?
Yeah, so.
What's the channels?
Yeah, so it'll either be paid directly from the developer. Yeah, so there'll be a pilot agreement essentially between KHC and the political subdivision. And so there'll be, the terms of the pilot agreement will be negotiated between the developer and the local political subdivision in KHC. So, however the pilot agreement has it structured, that's how the payment will be made.
But when you say negotiated, is the tax rate negotiated, or they're paying on the set tax rate? It's just the terms and logistics of how it's gonna work is
Well,
negotiated?
it's a payment in lieu of taxes.
Sure.
So, whatever.
Maybe zero.
Yeah, well, I guess theoretically it could be. That's, if that's what the political subdivision agrees to.
So it's not necessarily calculated and paid on the city or the county's property tax rates? It can be negotiated down?
Yes.
And is this in lieu of tax money only for cities and counties, conservation districts, fire districts, schools, libraries? They don't come into play?
Yeah, if they do, but it depends.
It depends on how it's
So they all get
negotiated.
their portion unless they negotiate otherwise? Okay. But yeah, I'm good with it. I just trying to learn here.
We probably covered this when we first was presented with this, but how many dollars are we allocating? Do you allocate it on an annual basis?
So KHC won't be allocating funding for this. The payments will come from the developer. So it'll be part of the development cost. They already currently factor in the cost of property
Oh,
taxes.
so we're not buying the real estate.
No.
We're just using our name to title the real estate in.
Correct.
We are the vehicle that they're using to get the pilot program.
Kind of like leasing it back to them?
Yes, and we'll be
Do
leasing it back.
does the developer pay us an administrative fee for that?
So there will be an application fee. We're still determining exactly how much that will be. Obviously there'll be some upfront costs associated with getting the lease in place and that sort of thing. and we'll have ongoing compliance. But that normally occurs as part of the tax credit program, so there won't be any additional cost for that in these projects.
And once again, I think Holly, or
Heather.
Heather, asked this question months ago. There is no residual risk to us if the project goes bad, right?
So, and, you know, we're working on developing the lease agreement that will have protections for us in place. There'll be indemnification provisions, and ultimately, we will structure it so that, you know, if there are issues with the project, non-compliance issues, not only is there enforcement on the tax credit side, but we'll be able to transfer the property back to them.
Well, as has been said, I think this is a great use of KHC's legal abilities to promote this development.
Luke, do you want to talk a little bit more about the protections that we're thinking about putting in place for?
Good afternoon. As Sam was just talking about, this will go into those agreements that get worked out between the developers and KHC. So it's a matter of contract, and it's like Sam was saying about indemnity, where if something goes bad, presumably KHC isn't even going to be liable. I have a hard time envisioning how legally KHC could be liable, but if some imaginative lawyer comes up with that and does try to tag KHC, that's on the developer, and we're going to make sure that they have insurance and all that to cover this. Something goes bad with the project, KHC is not going to be left holding the property, the real property, and trying to figure it out. That's on the developer as well. So it really is a good opportunity to address this tens of thousands of need that exists, and through a combination of a partnership with private businesses.
So a big part of it's gonna have to be an educational plan to get the word out to the cities, counties, municipalities.
We're just authorizing creating it.
Yes.
And you'll certainly have a guidebook or a rule book that we'll get to look at some point with things in them. So this is just, go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, and yes, and the resolution itself includes some parameters around that, right? So, it talks about the eligible applicants, eligible developments, they have to be located in Kentucky, have to have received the award of low-income housing tax credits, has to be at least 48 units, and subject to an extended use agreement. The developer has to identify and demonstrate site control of the property, negotiate the pilot payment with all applicable political subdivisions, and obtain written consent of the county judge executive and mayor, and then make annual payments in the amount of the pilot payment. And then we will acquire the real estate by a transfer of title, enter into a ground lease, and ensure the pilot payments from the developer are remitted to the appropriate political subdivisions, and ensure the affordability of the property during the term of the ground lease, which is what we normally do for low-income housing tax credit projects, and perform periodic compliance monitoring. And then in this resolution as well, there's a list of items that will be reported out to the board annually, to include a list of all the real and personal property owned as of December 31st of the previous calendar year, for which these ground leases have been executed, the assessed land value and development value of each property, the pilot fee for each property, estimated property tax savings, the date and term of the leases, and the number of units and the AMI limits for those units. So we'll provide annual updates to the board on this program as it progresses.
And with everything else, so there'll be changes as with each contract, and probably different. Sam and Winston will have to set different parameters, you know, depending on the contract. And I do want to mention one thing that I'm absolutely opposed to, but it's not KHC's fault. It's the legislature's fault. They put a minimum of 48 units. I do think that hurts small communities. And I disagree with that, but in their infinite wisdom, they had to develop it along the industrial revenue bond line. So that's the reason that is in there. Isn't that correct, Luke?
Yes, sir.
And Luke, I was remiss in not thanking you I know you've worked really, really hard over the last year developing this with Sam and Winston, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any other questions?
I have a comment, and you all have been very good to work with us and work with our Department of Revenue, because the legislature does things with taxes and I don't know why I did that. I don't know why I did that. Because the legislature may do things with taxes, obviously there is a lot of tax law that is still constitutional. And I just want to make sure that, you know, in the year where you are in lieu of taxes, when you are absolving, you know, working with somebody to absolve taxes, that you are continuing to work with a Department of Revenue and making sure that they are agreeing so that we don't get locked up anywhere.
So back in industrial development, we used to have to clear everything through your, and that's what you don't have to do, right? With KHC,
And that's what
right?
that's what housing has been doing, that they've been talking with our Department of Revenue, and we've been, you know, when I've seen things initially, I was like, I just want to make sure we're in this thing, because again, there are some things that the legislature can do with taxes, there are some things that are constitutional issues with taxes. I mean, you were in the legislature, you know that is true. And so just how things are framed can matter into how they're impacted, so I just want to encourage that continuation.
Well, we appreciate your assistance in dealing with the representatives of the Department of Revenue and your general counsel. Marty Dickens has been very helpful, and we've had several conferences at which we explored at some length the situations that they're currently facing and how, whether they're analogous to our situation or not. And then particularly with the act of the legislature this most recent session, we're comfortable that the approach that we're taking is a legal approach and is constitutional and would withstand a test if faced with it. So it's our best judgment that we should proceed ahead. And we'll continue to have that dialogue with Revenue.
And I think Sam and Winston did a good job in waiting on the legislature. I think it was a good move, so.
Seems like KHC is just a piece of the puzzle to make all this work with no cost to us and little to no risk.
That should be the way it works, Mayor.
That's the plan.
That's the plan.
I make a motion to adopt resolution number 35.
Okay, so we have a resolution from the mayor and a second from Kathy. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you all very much. I think.
That's a good explanation. Thank you.
It's our hope that this will help. So Winston, informational items.
Yeah, we have two additional items on the agenda, both of which you've heard reference to, but from Wendy earlier. Wendy's going to inform you more about the price program, and then following Wendy's presentation, Heather and Jamie are going to inform you more about the shared appreciation mortgage program. So
Yes.
Wendy?
Both brand new programs. We did preview these with the Planning Programs Policy Committee, but wanted to give you all at least a sampling of that overview as well. So the PRICE program, it's a big acronym that doesn't really mean a whole lot. Let's just call it PRICE and go to the next slide, if you don't mind. So this was, they've done a pilot and then a second round of one-time or second-time money. So it's not an ongoing HUD program. Right now it's got no allocations in the upcoming federal budget, but that could change. But this is a program, so it's limited funding, and we apply with the Department for Local Government, DLG, thank you, Commissioner Sawyers, to go after this funding. I will be honest, this was funding that we've never done anything like it. And I'll tell you what we're doing in a second. It was a Hail Mary. We were like, it's addressing really old mobile homes and mobile home communities. We have a lot of those in Kentucky. We felt like we've got to go for it. And then we got the third largest award in the country. So we were like, congratulations, and what are we gonna do, right? So we have been spending all the time since we got that award trying to map this program out. It's, again, brand new and pretty complex. So if we want to go to the next, so the funds actually go to DLG, and then KHC will administer it on behalf of DLG. So we're working closely on design and submission of everything to HUD. Right now, I'm going to say we're happy to do it. In a year or two, I might not feel that way. We're doing two things. There's a lot of allowable uses. We're focusing on two areas. One is the creation of resident-owned cooperatives. So where you have a manufactured home community where the owner is interested in selling and the residents are interested in becoming a cooperative that owns it collectively via like a nonprofit entity and governing board. And so we wrote into our application to HUD a nonprofit, a national nonprofit and CDFI, Community Development Finance Institution, called Rock USA. They do this for a living, working with communities to help them become resident-owned. A lot of foundations have put money into them to help them get going, and they have a lot of lending capital. So often, if they do it without any subsidy, it is the community having to take on debt, and often folks' lot rent actually goes up in the first year or two, but then doesn't increase at the rate that it typically does when you have a for-profit owner. And they've got the security of knowing they can't be kicked off their lot or have their lot rent, just escalate insanely. What we aim to do is to offset the cost of that debt financing and infrastructure improvements. A lot of times they need stormwater improvements, the roadways might need improved, lots might need to be graded, all that kind of stuff. You might even add some lots depending on the land use of the community. So there's a lot that can happen. And what we're going to do is rely on ROC for most of the work, and we're going to figure out how our funds can help keep the lot rents from going up a whole lot for the owners.
It's a grant?
Well, we can structure it to them as a grant or a loan. We aim for our funds to be what we call a soft debt, meaning they don't have to repay as long as they are maintaining the property per our requirements. Do you get it? So it's like a soft second mortgage that just sits there, it's forgiven at the end of the period of affordability, but it's technically due if they don't follow the rules. So we gotta have a little bit of teeth in there to make sure, it can't immediately be sold then to an equity investor and then our funds get effectively lost. The second area, which is probably gonna be even more complicated, is targeted replacement of really old pre-1976 mobile homes. These are homes that were bought, created, whatever, before HUD code was established, which at least created a baseline of what quality manufactured housing has to meet. And they're very old, they're often incredibly energy inefficient. I can tell you that Kelly's weatherization programs sometimes see these aged mobile homes with utility monthly costs that are just insane. Like $400 to $800 a month people are paying on the utilities for a mobile home. It's just really, really unaffordable. So what we are allowed to do with this portion of our price funding is replace those with a like unit. It has to be either a manufactured unit or a modular unit. It cannot be stick-built. That's mandated in the price legislation. So those are the two buckets of what we're gonna do. We've never done anything like it. I wanna make sure this is clear. This is us being bold, brave, or crazy, some combo of that.
So on the second one.
Yes.
So I've got a dilapidated rundown.
Yeah.
So what do I do?
Give me a minute.
Oh,
Next
okay.
slide, please.
But it means that they are chattel, not.
They will be real property. Give me a second. Don't steal my thunder, y'all. This is just an overview of the budget. I want to make sure this is like our best guess. So basically what we're doing is saying 12 million is going for the resident-owned communities. We will at least get 2 communities. ROC thinks we can get 5 to 7, but we are just for HUD committing to 2 because this is uncharted territory. We really don't know what kind of infrastructure improvements, what kind of debt financing we're gonna do. The second, which is for the replacement program, we aim to do this through nonprofits or local governments around the state, and so that'll be grants that will go out to them. Our lowball guess is 80 homes. We think we can do more. That's all going to depend on what the all-in cost ends up being of getting units. And I'll talk about that in a second. The rest of the funds are going to go to project delivery costs for KHC, right? We're going to do inspections, we're going to be looking at the financials, we're going to be doing compliance monitoring, and then also some admin costs for ROC USA, DLG, and KHC, and our subrecipients. One of the things we have built into here with this project delivery fee is that the nonprofits that we work through to replace these units will get a $20,000 per unit production fee. Why? Because it's going to be a lot of case management and a lot of work to get someone's mobile home replaced. You are gonna work with that family a lot. You gotta figure out, can they live in their old unit while we bring in the new unit? Do they have to go to a hotel? It's not just development. It really is a lot of working with an individual household to make this happen. Much easier said than done. Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah.
It's not gonna steal your thunder.
It's okay.
Are you going to be like demolishing, like tearing them down, taking them apart?
They must be destroyed and disposed of. They cannot keep the older unit. The whole aim of this is to improve that housing stock and reduce their energy drain, because they're really important.
But they won't be like put anywhere where somebody can
They
rebuy
cannot.
anything.
It is mandatory that
Okay.
disposal of the old unit happens and it gets removed from the site. Yeah. Because that's exactly what would happen, is there'd just be now two on the same site, right? Yeah. Okay, so with the resident-owned cooperatives, again, this is helping the manufactured housing communities become resident-owned, right? This, we're gonna work through Rock USA. If you'll scroll down, I just wanna highlight some of the roles that they're gonna play. They do this across the nation. They've been very active in many other states, Virginia lately, in particular, working with the HFA in Virginia. They are gonna be the ones to identify the communities that seem like they have potential. And we have a whole list of like, what are threshold things that have to be in place? It can't be in too bad a shape. I've said to a couple of like mayors and county judge executives, if you have a park that you desperately want us to do this with, it's probably not a candidate, right? Because it's probably in such bad shape, and the units might be in such bad shape. It really has to be in okay shape, and we have to have a majority of residents that want to do it. It's really got to be collective. And you have to have a seller or an owner who is interested in selling. They often have a good relationship with their mobile home owners, their tenants, if you will. And they don't want to see it get demolished or sold to like an equity company or something like that. So there are a lot of like things that have to be in place. And then there's also a list of like, it'd be ideal if other factors were also in place, but they're not must-have. So we've gone through with Rock, like what are the threshold characteristics and what are the would-be nice characteristics. But Rock USA they've already come out a couple times just to start looking around, and we pulled a list of communities across the state. They will do outreach, they will meet with the residents and talk about like what does it mean to be resident-owned, but then also map out what kind of improvements have to be done? What's the pro forma for getting these done and then operating over time as a resident-owned community, and then putting the financing together? Again, they have philanthropic and CDFI loan funds. We're going to use our funds to keep the debt load low for the community so that lot rents don't go up, and to make sure they get those infrastructure improvements that they need. And they will actually work with the community. Part of their aim in having a loan with the community is they keep a relationship long-term with that community to keep them resident governed and owned. It's a really cool organization. We're really excited to be working with them. Next slide. Okay, the other part, which is replacing these old one-for-one units. Now, we're not going to do this in resident-owned communities, right? This is where you own your land and you have a mobile home, or you can prove that you have a perpetual right to it, like it's family land that you have inherited. Maybe you don't actually have a deed, but somehow we have to be able to know that you have a right to have your unit on that land. If you're renting that lot, we're probably not going to do this because we're going to convert it to real property. We can't do that if you don't own the land or have a perpetual right to that land. So it's got to be a pre-1976 unit. The owners have to have a housing cost burden where they're spending over 30% or equal to 30% of their income on their housing costs, including utilities. I knew you were going to ask that. And you need to be earning about 50% of state or county area median income. We'll take whichever is higher. Some of our rural counties, the incomes are so low, we'll use the state instead. Okay, and so what can you do with the money? You can buy and install the new energy efficient manufactured or modular, and we are in the midst of issuing a request for plans and pricing to modular and manufactured builders. We'll probably be putting that out in June. Basically, we want to create a catalog of pre-approved units for this program, right? These are gonna be very small units. Pre-1976 mobile homes are very small, right? They're usually 2-bedroom. And we wanna do kind of like for like. So we wanna get a book of plans and pricing that our partners across the state don't have to negotiate individually. They know KHC has approved these and here's what it costs. It might not be all in because you don't know transportation, the distance and all of that, but here's what the box costs effectively. The removal and disposal of the existing unit, mandatory. And then if they have to be temporarily relocated for some reason, if they can't stay in the existing unit while we replace it, we can actually pay for like a couple hotel nights or, Airbnb or something like that. We want to get this recorded as real property, so we will cover those legal costs. And then we will pay that production fee to the nonprofit when they get it done. Basically, rewarding them for the work.
Okay, so you mentioned a catalog, so if you're gonna say the value that we're gonna replace this with is $100,000 or $150,000, that's all they can do. They can't say, I wanna take that and apply it toward something more.
Yes. We're gonna say it's gotta be like for like, basically. We're not gonna go much beyond the footprint and the number of bedrooms.
They can't go in their money.
We have not contemplated that. We feel like it's pretty rare that someone at 50% AMI is gonna
Instead of
have.
1976 mobile
Right,
home.
right,
Yes, that's true.
yeah. Now, if we hit that, maybe we'll figure it out as we go, but right now, we're not contemplating allowing for that.
I just was wondering about insurance, since they won't be treated as chattel, it will be treated as real property.
Next slide, please. Yes.
What if,
My best friend was chair of the Board of Rock. It is a great organization.
It's phenomenal. It's really great. Yes?
I was gonna say, what if they decide to sell it?
Well, y'all are asking all the good questions. I'm gonna get to that. Okay, so who will we work with? It could be local government or probably more likely community-based nonprofits, maybe in partnership with local governments. We will only do one award for any given county, and they can do multiple counties for sure, meaning we're not gonna fund 2 grantees in the same county, right? It's just gonna be hard enough if a city and a nonprofit both wanna do it, get together and apply together, and we'll do an award that y'all can work with together. Okay, down here, this is where, okay, so here's how it's gonna work. So much like we talked about with the resident-owned communities getting this soft second mortgage, there will be some kind of loan on these. It has to be at least 15 years, that's required by the program. And it will be partially or wholly forgivable over time, but it sits there so they can't borrow against it, and they can't sell without repaying us during that 15-year period. Having some kind of mortgage, now we will keep the interest rate at 0% and their payment at 30% of their monthly income. I cannot guarantee that taxes and insurance won't be more than 30%. But I can tell you that the mortgage part will be. But we will collect all of it because these are folks who probably have not ever paid taxes and insurance. So we feel like it's going to be important for us to play a role in holding those escrows so they don't lose their house, but also so they don't borrow against it or sell it without us knowing it, right? So that's going to be the key vehicle of kind of compliance.
So you're thinking about sublease?
It has to remain their primary residence. So I do believe that, now it could be on a case-by-case basis. We would allow it, or we would allow an heir to live in it if someone dies and they're still income qualified. We typically do that.
They just can't rent that.
But no, this is meant to be their primary residential unit.
And I have one more question
Yeah.
before you get too far from the
Mhm.
1976 slide there. If it's gonna be something comparable, but in 1976, they were 2 bedroom and small, can you buy them? What are you comping to?
Oh, what I mean comparable is the unit size and footprint. So if it was let's say it was an 800 square foot 2-bedroom, the unit from our catalog that could be replaced, we might say you could go up to 1,000 square feet, but it's still 2 bedrooms.
The catalog has stuff that's small in it.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You can get stuff that is sized about the same as old mobile homes, and you could get a 5-bedroom, really great manufactured unit. You know, it kind of comes in all different sizes.
Maybe hard to find, but I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
We'll know more after we get the catalog together.
Right.
Your only issue is gonna be the width, in most cases there, because there's a lot of 12 wides that were pre-76.
Sure.
might not be in there.
So we can go on the footprint, just 1 square foot.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we won't hold them to that exact, but just.
Might be a triangle.
We're not gonna let you go from a 2-bedroom to a 4-bedroom. We're not gonna pay for a den and a,
Right.
entertainment room and all. It's gonna be super low cost, people. We're gonna keep it pretty modest.
It is a done.
So when the federal government put this program in place, I mean, do they project out, for 4 or 5 years, or could this be one and done?
That's a great question. It could be one and done. It keeps getting listed in budget negotiations, but I don't believe it got funded last year.
I don't think so.
And
It's
and
not
it's, right now,
projected to be
it's
funded
zeroed out this year. And I will say, part of the trouble with one-time funding is how do you ramp up capacity if you don't know it's gonna last for very long? Now, we've got 28 million to work with, so that's a nice bucket of money. But it'd be great if it continued, because if we're gonna learn how to do this, let's keep doing it,
Yeah.
Okay, so next slide, this is the last slide. Next steps are just that we are working on an MOA with DLG, because we're gonna have this working relationship. We're working on a contract with Rock USA. We're doing that request for plans and pricing probably in June, again, to build a catalog. And then we will be putting out a funding application for nonprofits and trainings and webinars for them, because it's gonna be new for them too. So again, while we haven't started getting a lot of money out and we don't have much in the allocation plan or anything for this, we are doing a lot of infrastructure building to get ready for it. Oh, that's a great question. 2035, I think. I'd have to double check, but it's pretty long.
Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Heather, Jamie?
Good afternoon, members of the board. Heather and I have been working together on a new program that we would like to introduce you to help address affordability and Kentucky's ongoing housing supply challenges. As you know, we simply do not have enough homes on the market, especially affordable homes, and that is putting real pressure on our buyers. Home prices have continued to rise faster than incomes, and the gap is making it harder for the families we serve to become homeowners. Our Shared Appreciation Mortgage Program, or SAM, named after our Sam, is designed to help close that gap. SAM provides up to 25% of a home's sales price or appraised value to help cover down payment and closing costs on a newly constructed home. It's a way to make homeownership more accessible while also supporting new supply. And that will be tied with the KHC first mortgage using our Fannie or Freddie conventional products. Next slide, please. So who is eligible? The borrowers or buyers must be first-time homeowners, and they must complete a SAM, very specific homebuyer education course prior to applying for the program. The properties must be newly constructed. Agency guidelines define that as complete up to 12 months but unoccupied. That can include a site-built home, modular home, manufactured home. It can include a owner-occupied duplex or a single-family residence with an accessory dwelling unit. And finally, borrowers must be at an 80% area median income. That wasn't on there, I just threw that in. Repayment. So one of the biggest benefits of SAM is that this is a zero interest loan with no monthly repayments. The assistance is deferred, so the buyer only repays it later. And the repayment happens when the home is sold, refinanced with cash out, title is transferred if they're in a default situation, or at the time that they pay off that first mortgage. But at that point that they trigger repayment, they pay back that original principal balance that they borrowed on the SAM, plus any future appreciation that is based on the same percentage that we helped them with at the time of purchase. So if the home goes up in value, KHC does share in that appreciation at a proportional amount. If the home does not appreciate, then the borrower pays back just that original principal balance. And all of the funds repaid in that program will be recycled out to help the next borrowers. So here's a quick example. Let's say that the home was purchased for $200,000 and the SAM portion was 25% of that. Later, the home, so it's $50,000 that they borrow in this second mortgage program. Later, that home is worth $250,000, so it appreciated by $50,000. So because Sam covered 25% of that, the borrower's share of that 25%, or they would pay back to us, would be $12,500 plus the original $50,000 principal balance, for a total of $62,500. And again, if the home does not appreciate, they just pay back that original $50,000. Next slide. And we propose launching this in 2 phases. Phase 1 will use $10 million, an initial investment by KHC out of the Housing Development Fund. With the typical SAM amount, we're guesstimating, I guess, that the median acquisition cost may be around $250,000. Based on a 25% usage rate, that would be a $62,500 investment per unit. So with an initial investment of $10 million, we estimate we can help up to 160 properties with this. And Heather has some exciting ideas for phase 2.
Yeah, so phase 1, we expect to go through the money for phase 1 fairly quickly. So we are trying to figure out how we're going to continue to fund this program. So phase 2 is going to involve a donation structure. We are looking into receiving funding from local municipalities that are interested in creating their own down payment assistance programs for their communities. I think the only ones we really have in the state right now are Louisville, Lexington, and maybe one in the northern Kentucky area. So this would provide another tool for local municipalities to be able to provide more housing for their residents. We are looking at employer-assisted housing programs. We've done an excellent job of bringing more jobs to the Commonwealth. However, the housing has not really been tied with that, and so that's causing a lot of strain. I hear that a lot whenever I go out in the communities. So this is an opportunity for employers to be able to create their own employer-assisted housing program to help attract and retain employees. We are looking at potentially lenders being able to provide some funding for using their CRA credit. We're also thinking about foundations. So the phase 2 funding, it would be more of a restricted dollars, which would allow the funder to be able to put different parameters around it and make it more tailored to the people they're trying to serve. So that's phase 2. If we looked ahead to phase 3, that would be potentially a state allocation. So we're hoping to have enough data that we collect from this program to be able to show that it is very badly needed and hopefully get at some point state allocation. Yes.
How would this tie to a Section 8 for home ownership program, which hundreds of families have used to purchase homes in Louisville?
That is a level of complication that I had not thought of, but let me think. I'll think through it on the fly.
Okay.
It's newly constructed, and I believe the Section 8 voucher to home ownership program requires homeowner or their tenants to spend at least 30% toward housing, but that can include utilities, correct? I'm in the single family side.
Basically, look, yeah, that you get assisted based on Section 8, but that money is used to pay the mortgage.
It would pay the first mortgage.
Right.
So then we would need to back into, it could be, I'm thinking it could be done, but we would need to back into what is the base mortgage that client would need to carry.
And then also, you'd want to reserve for replacement, like an IDA or something. But we talk about how expensive housing is, so another, you know how many things go into building affordable multifamily, right? All those pieces you have to put together. You could put together a couple of pieces that would enable people to purchase. It seems like if you're going all this trouble.
No, that is a possibility, because we would need to figure out how to factor in what's the base mortgage that client would need, and then from there, what's 25% on top of that.
To get a better unit.
Absolutely. That's the idea. There are so few homes. Back, 20 years ago, our average purchase price was under $100,000. Those loans don't exist. If they do exist, if someone could purchase a home for that amount, the amount of repairs that are needed, the weatherization, how energy efficient is that property, those borrowers almost immediately are faced with some sort of large repair, and that's where the first-time home buyers that we serve stumble. So this gives them an option to purchase a newly constructed home or newly acquired manufactured home or modular, have that energy efficiency benefit, and compete in this market, and get out of that market rent, which then frees up a rental unit, which then just moves everybody up.
Where did you come up with the 25% factor?
25% because it has to go with the Fannie or Freddie first mortgage, so it's that conventional product. They're the only programs that will work with that shared appreciation model at this time. 20% eliminates the need for that private mortgage insurance, so it reduces that monthly payment even more, and then the 5% can either be also applied to the principal, or it can help cover closing costs.
My dad had a mortgage where, depending on his income, it went down to 0%. And we had innovative mortgages, and I don't mean innovative like when we lost control of mortgages and they were predatory. I want to see people who are working people at a lower level also be able to engage and become anchors in their neighborhoods. So I'm gonna ride you on this Section 8 for home ownership.
Ride Winston and then for more money too while you're at it.
No, I'm
sorry. We have 10 million.
Well,
With plans for more.
We should have that program anyway.
Any other questions?
This is wonderful, ladies. Y'all done an excellent job. And let me thank you all and Wendy and for putting together both of these programs. And I think this is indicative of the kind of staff that KHC has. They have an amazing staff here. And Winston, will you be sure that that they know that the board appreciates what the staff does here? Absolutely. So, anybody have any questions?
Compliment the commissioner, work with KHC to make this happen.
Yeah, right. Well, thank you. Yes, sir.
Staff.
There you go.
Once again.
There you go. Okay.
Good staff.
Winston, do you have anything further?
No, I have nothing else further.
Any of the staff or the
Metropolitan
board?
Housing Coalition on June 2nd has the now Pulitzer Prize winning author, There Is No Place for Us Working and Homeless in America, Brian Goldstone. So I think KHC, some staff are going to that?
Yeah.
We have a table.
You have a table. So it's Tuesday the 2nd. It's gonna be good.
So thank all the board members for attending today, and again, thank you to the staff. We appreciate all your hard work. And with that, I will entertain a motion that we adjourn.
So moved.
All right, have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign, motion carries. Thank you all.